There we go. I'm live. Live on YouTube, live on Rockfin. Got my one of my favorite guests. Should I say my favorite guest? I don't know. Is that weird to say my favorite guest? Probably is kind of weird. This dude is pretty weird.
There seems to be a problem because I can still hear you, and I thought you were going to mute throughout this whole stream. So I'm actually hearing you. So I don't know if you just want to mute the whole time.
No. I think what we were discussing, I was saying I would be muting. I'll mute mine so we don't get double feedback, so you don't go through my mic, because you and I both refuse to wear headphones. We're both divas who refuse to wear headphones.
No, I'm pretty sure you said you would mute yourself for the whole stream. That's what I'm.
That would mean you wouldn't be able to hear what I'm saying, which would imply that maybe you don't want to hear me speak, which would possibly imply that you don't. I just said you're one of my favorite guests, bro. What's up with this? Now you. I
just thought you meant that in a cynical, mocking, condescending way. I can never tell if anybody's sincere anymore. The millennials and the Gen Z have turned everything into irony and satire. So I just assume everybody's being cynical and hateful.
I mean, this is just getting kind of awkward.
I assume you're being jealous is typically what I'm assuming.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry, I was muted there. I was trying to respect the rules that you're trying to establish.
I'm just making jokes, Tristan. Don't feel awkward. You know you're at home.
This is getting. It's really. I don't really know what to say at this point. I feel very. I kind of put my heart out there. You know, I kind of really put it all on the line when I said one of my favorite guests. It just seems like
you put your heart out there, it's going to get broke. So I'm teaching you a hard lesson about life.
I appreciate that. I guess. Actually, wait. All right. I was trying to adjust something in OBS. Thank you guys for bearing with me here. My boomer tech skills over here. I got Young Boomer with a J, Carl Jung Boomer, top rapper from jaysanalysis.com, host of Jay's Analysis, one of the most solid, consistent YouTube channels out there in the YouTube sphere. He is an IRL streamer. Currently on I think it's 10 days, 24/7 IRL streaming.
Yeah, I do. We stream from the kitchen, inane banter, drama with my multiple girlfriends. We stream sometimes from the back porch. We stream from the bedroom that's over on OnlyFans. We pretty much stream everything. So you guys can be sure to check all that out live. I give a lot of gaslighting lessons. A lot of people can follow the live streams, and you can see me with my various HOES, gaslighting them and so forth, teaching them the best ways to be submissive, basically, just promoting that bigot lifestyle.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, I actually think accidentally muted myself on the on the OBS, so they didn't hear that. Yeah. So, anyways, he is one of the top IRL streamers. We appreciate that work. Appreciate the work he does concerning geopolitics, theology, history, all that stuff. And we got a fun stream today. If you're watching on YouTube, the latter half of the stream, the later half of the stream will be exclusively on Rockfin. Remember, on Rockfin, we can say what we want to say. We don't have to censor ourselves, even though, you know, of course, we're always nice. We always good. We always good little wannabe celebrities over here on the channel. We be oh, sorry, you want to pipe in there, Jay? I said wannabe celebrities. Did you? I think Jay's a legitimate
Well, I'm
celebrity.
an actual one. That's why I didn't speak up. So
Okay, sorry. Your facial expression kind of expressed a little. You know, you kind of cringed when I said wannabes, but I'm sorry. Actual celebrity, one of us at least. You know,
well, you
stay-
need to have you need to have more confidence. So if you do want to get to bona fide diva status, you can't do it with that attitude.
Right. Well, we were talking about wardrobe tips as well. I don't have hair and makeup.
A wardrobe, right?
Yeah, I mean, he calls them the help. I don't even know what that means. I don't really have multiple the helps. But you know, I mean, Jay, he's got people that dress him.
Well, I have a trailer, right? So my actor trailer out back, we've got, and we kind of let some of the staff live out there full time, and the makeup staff, basically makeup and hair staff, lives in the trailer full time. My actor trailer.
Exactly. So I'm sorry, before Jay interrupted rudely there, I was trying to explain that I personally I need some tips on style. Basically, I kind of, you know, I wear t-shirts, I wear shorts, I wear what's comfortable. You know, you might find me in some overalls in the morning. I might take those overalls off, and I might change the shorts that are underneath them to some shorts that have less butt sweat in them from the morning activities. And Jay, as you can see here, you know, I'll make him a little bigger. Look at that. There you go. So he's got the style down. You know, so anyways, he was giving me some tips on where to get blouses like the one he's wearing. You know, places where I could get, you know, men's fashion. So anyways, you can find that most of that stuff, the men's fashion stuff, manosphere stuff, obedience training for wives and for the help. You can find that on his IRL streams, some of the best on the internet for sure, by far. And yeah, he's also on Rockfin. So second half of this is going to be Rockfin only. It's going to be, we're going deep, but we're going to try to have some fun with it, as we always do here. We got you know, Jay and I. If you guys don't know, we're freaking joking in this like whole last bit. And every time there's somebody that makes a comment thinking that Jay and I really don't like each other, that we're really trying to nag each other. No, we
constantly do live streams together, but we hate each other. Yeah.
We do this to just see who can have the emotional edge at the end, and see who has you know,
who gets their feelings hurt.
Absolutely, who can hurt the feelings the most of the other. So anyways, yeah, we're talking about World War III, right? World War III allegedly, 1, 2, and 3, and we're talking about Ukraine, culture wars, cognitive warfare, and weaponized pop culture, and the infantilization of culture. As you can see with the background here, we've got a lot to pull from today. We're going to be doing a little bit of propaganda.
Yeah, how can Russia and Ukraine not be excited for the glorious consumerism that's being exported? I mean, how would you not want Marvel wipies?
I couldn't believe they had Marvel Avengers wet wipes. I mean, this is you can have Marvel Avengers wet wipes to clean you off in your coom pod after you've spent, you know, your half of your inheritance from your grandparents, from your dead grandparents who fought in World War II from a freedoms. After you've spent that on OnlyFans subscriptions. I mean, how could you not be so happy for what's going on over in the Ukraine?
Yeah, I mean, this is the exportation of neoliberalism, neoliberal rights, philosophy, so-called democracy, which again, you know, this all comes out of the Cold War. And so if we understand the strategy that Brzezinski and Kissinger and people cooked up for the post-Soviet bloc countries, the Arc of Crisis model, what they did was destabilize all of those satellite areas and regions, and then install over time a series of color revolutions, what Gene Sharp, perfected and called his democratic regime change operation of technology, basically, at the behest of the CIA and the State Department and all these entities. And this was the transition from the older espionage models to putting a human face, an NGO, to putting a human face and rights basis for the older regime change operation. So now we're given the impression that the regime change operations are for democracy, women's rights, abortion, stabbies, on and on and on. So that's what was going on as a larger strategy of, for example, Miles Copeland in his book, Game of Nations, describes this a long time ago, that the long-term plan for Syria and Egypt, which is where he was focused during the Cold War, where he was stationed as a consultant for the CIA, was the long-term strategy of industrializing to bring them into the global order to reduce population. And he's very candid, very clear, very open. In fact, Miles Copeland says, if you want to understand what we're doing in these countries, this is back in the 40s and 50s. He says, just go read Bertrand Russell. He says, that's it. He says, we are installing a democratic liberal regime, so-called, in all these countries, but the long-term plan, the actuaries that we have for 20, 30, 50, 100 years is just whatever works to drastically reduce the population in these countries. Now, if, as we've covered in the Global Elite book series, we've seen this now in about 60 different books that we've analyzed. This is no different. The situation in Ukraine is a short-term, medium-term, and long-term goal, ultimately for the exportation of culture, toxic culture and ideology to Russia. This is an element that the mainstream media in the West will never talk about. They don't know anything about this. Only people really at those higher levels, people that read, the cognitive warfare document that we have from NATO, this kind of stuff, only they understand really what's going on and what the long-term goal is here. And of course, this NATO cognitive warfare document outlines the long-term goal, that this is a long-term transhumanist goal with a lot of chess pieces and a lot of moves to be made before we get to that 2030, 2050 end stage goal. And yes, even the Ukraine has a role in that, because this is a region that is a long-term Western area that is needed, that needs to be peeled away. From the Western standpoint, Ukraine is crucial to peel away from Russia. In fact, in World War II, Hitler did this. So part of the reason that there's a lot of Ukrainian neo-Nazi support to this day is because Hitler had a big role in getting Ukraine to be a nation state. And ironically, this is something that was invented out of World War I. It's not a historic nation state. It's a World War I post-war creation. Ukraine as a nation state. Historically, it's totally 100% Russia. Russia comes out of Kiev. The whole nation is basically a mother Russia, you could say. It comes from mother Kiev. So that's the history of Russia. It's not historically a buffer zone. It's not historically a non-Russian area. It's all Russia. So that's the Orthodox classical view. And it's not until we get into the 20th century, after Lenin, World War I, that we have the beginning of Ukraine as its own, quote, nation state, again, which was always a Western strategy. And we saw how well that worked with Hitler. That didn't work too well for him. That doesn't mean that the Soviets, it doesn't mean that Stalin are the good guys, just the facts of power politics. So that's
if you don't mind, Jay, just a question for you, and because it seems like you've done a lot more research about this than I have, as far as the history of the Soviet Union and the Ukraine within the Soviet Union. Did the Soviets allow this nationalist push in the Ukraine during?
Well, if you listen to Putin's speech, he mentioned that it was actually Vladimir Lenin, when he came to power, he's the one that kind of gave Ukraine away to the West.
So why would he do that? It seems like a strategically retarded thing to do on Lenin's behalf.
Well, so Lenin had different plans. He had this idea that certain things he could do could ultimately unite Russia with Germany. So this is partly why Germany had, its period of being communist, is because there was this original plan by the Bolsheviks for Lenin to unite Russia with Germany. And he thought if he could unite Russia with Germany, then they would be able to dominate Europe, the Soviets.
So Lenin spent a lot of time in Germany, right? Like he spent a lot of time in Germany. A lot of his funding came from German liberals as well, right?
Yes, and Western banking elites, exactly. So one perhaps could argue, and some people have argued that I think they get it wrong. They say Lenin was a German asset or agent. He wasn't a German agent. He was an agent of the banking elite of the West. But
it's always an interesting thing when people want to peg somebody as the agent of this or that. But it's like, what I love about the analysis that you've done over the years, and the way I see it as well, is like we're looking at agents of ideologies, right? Agents of worldviews, right? I mean, they're less. It's not this like monolithic block of power. When you look at the so-called elite, you're looking at worldviews or what drives their behaviors. I mean, they'll put on ideologies and take them off like a garment. They'll use them like in a utilitarian, cynical way. But yeah, sorry, man. I don't know if I.
No, it's okay. So I mean, as to the exact reasoning, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot about this that I don't know. I just kind of have a general overview idea of the rationale for the post World War I attempt to basically set up this quote nation state. And really that's what imperial powers have always done, is divvy up areas into smaller regions. Doesn't mean that there are no nation states. They're all fake. I mean, obviously, biblically speaking, there are historic nation states, but the modern idea of the nation state is a, post-war, post-colonial type, post-revolution creation. So they're just kind of like these de facto made up things divided up by the larger powers. So it's probably to people who are more studying this could tell you exactly what the rationale was, but it ended up becoming something amenable to the West, right? So in other words, whether Lenin was giving away Ukraine because he thought this would create some greater alliance, or whether he was literally like working for the other side to destroy Russia, which is probably more likely. Like he's an agent of chaos, an agent of destruction, ultimately to destroy the countries. I mean, that seems to be what Bolshevism, communism do, is that they have all these glowing promises, but what ends up happening is that they're just sort of destruction. They're like wrecking balls that destroy the country and then allow the country to be basically the money and the power is centralized and then it's divvied up later on. So it's kind of like a long-term scam is really the way I view communism. But I don't know what ultimately the motivation was for Lenin doing that. Anyway, long story short is that there's a great article. I was trying to find it this morning and I couldn't dig it up, but I think it's Nina. Nina wrote a really good article about the way Hitler tried to use Ukraine as a chess piece nation state, divided off from Russia, and it just doesn't work. Like people keep trying to do this and it fails, right? Because the people are historically ethnically Russian. It just doesn't work. And then and along with the geopolitical coup that the Orange Revolution and Soros and Nuland and all these people funded back in the 2013-14 period, then you have essentially the CIA coming in right after that and fostering the Orthodox schism to set up the schismatic pro-Western patriarch that isn't, the Denisenko guy, as opposed to Metropolitan Onufri, who was the canonical Orthodox bishop there. And of course, the State Department then putting their stress and emphasis and exerting their influence and perhaps even money to the ecumenical patriarch to recognize the schismatics, and hence the division in the Orthodox Church, which I think is all part of the plan. They have the strategy to divide and conquer not just Ukraine, but also the Orthodox Church as well.
Yeah, which, I mean, when you look at, just going back to the Bolshevik Revolution, the Bolsheviks saw that, I mean, the Tsar and the existence of monarchy was very tied in with the Orthodox worldview, right? I mean, the Christian worldview, monarchy is, then it's an icon of heaven, right? The kingdom. Like St. John of Kronstadt said, heaven is a kingdom, hell is a democracy. And it's interesting that, like, in the first few decades of the Soviet Union as well, you see a complete onslaught and attack on the Ukraine with the Holodomor, right? The Holodomor we were looking at there, the way I understand it, and I'm not like, expert scholar on any of this, but the way I understand it, it's like the Ukraine was feeding much of the world, right? The Ukraine was the breadbasket, called it like the breadbasket of Europe. This black soil region, they called it the black soil because it had an incredibly rich soil that I think they were growing something like 90% of the wheat and rye and for all of Europe or possibly even the world. And it was a ridiculous amount of output as far as agricultural land goes. And the peasantry there were very loyal monarchists, right? They did not want to, many of them did not enjoy the idea of collectivization of the farms that the Bolsheviks brought about and forced. And the Bolsheviks ended up murdering millions of them, starving them in one of the most horrific acts of the 20th century. So I mean, it's a fascinating and
Well, to be clear, that gets kind of nuanced because Stalin isn't Bolshevik. So the Stalinists, they hate the Bolsheviks, but it was Stalin's regime that's allegedly the source of. I mean, I'm not saying that there wasn't problems with the Stalin regime, but I just don't know about the numbers they claim about that. So I'm not saying that it's not true. I'm just saying I don't know.
Yeah, it's disputed the numbers, and it's disputed was this intentional? Was this mismanagement? It is disputed. I tend to lean towards they really did intentionally kill and starve out many people there and destroy. They destroyed agriculture there.
I mean, and if you listen to Putin's speech the other day, he apologized. I don't guess that's not gonna matter to a lot of people, but I mean, he apologized to a lot of people who underwent those things, and he said, we can if you want to decommunize the Ukraine, we can do that, but it doesn't need to happen with the Western NATO support for these totally cardboard cutout neo-Nazi groups who are just ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's insane just how much time and energy. I mean, we're looking at. Most people are looking at the Ukraine as some new phenomenon. Most people had. I mean, you and I had DMs about this earlier. Most of these people have never even looked at Ukraine on the map. Had no idea where to locate the Ukraine on the map.
And they don't realize that the people they're supporting are literally like, people that have been canceled for the last 7 years, across social media, right? These NASEE people.
Well, the Azov group, right? I mean, this is even mainstream.
Well, there's the people that follow Stepan Bandera. There's the right sector, Pravi sector. There's all these different little, and they're all just really. I mean, you can go look up John McCain there with them, speaking with them. If you remember that weirdo from Countercurrents, Greg, I forget his name, but they sent people over there to do the lectures and the talks. And this just gets into the West doesn't care about that ideology. All they care about is fomenting the tribal ethnic hatred there. And that goes back to these 20th century fights. But historically, prior to World War I and the Bolsheviks, I mean, Ukraine was just Russia. I mean, there's posters from 100 years ago that just show Ukraine as Russia, right? The heart of Russia.
I mean, and this goes back like 1,000 years, over 1,000 years to the baptism at the Kievan Rus, the Christianization of Rus, right? So I mean, Putin mentioned this in his speech as well.
Mm-hmm.
But it's fascinating to see. I mean, the West has been building up this, the Russian bot meme for the last 7 years. It's also been real strong. Anybody that opposes the globalist American empire, you are a Russian bot. You are a Putin shill. This stuff, especially in the 2016 election, Russia, they've been really pushing this Russian demonization, kind of the Russophobia stuff hard for the last 6 years. So it's not particularly surprising that, the pace at which they're trying to ramp this sort of ideological and now, unfortunately, physical conflict with Russia. They're really ramping it up hard though right now. And I mean, it's fascinating when you look at the symbols they're using. You look at the pop culture dumbed down, just cognitive warfare methods that they're using with the propaganda. Like you see behind us there, you guys are watching. You could see that Ukraine's gay combat volunteers are ready to fight for their lives against anti-LGBTQ Putin. This This is literally the level of analysis that the West is giving you, right? The poor little oppressed gays and trans rights and it's like the Native American population of of the Ukraine stands with Zelensky and the rest of the Avengers. I mean, it's a very dumbed down way that we see it. How can you speak a little bit about how you see the road? What was the road that America, that the West took to get to such a level of stupidity concerning world events, geopolitics, and the way we see this? Because it's like it really is Marvel level analysis that you get from mainstream media now.
I mean, obviously, as you know, the media has always been bought off and corrupt and lying. You know, Quigley talks about 100 years ago that the robber barons, the mega rich, had basically bought all of the press in the U.S. 100 plus years ago. Everybody's seen probably. Oh, I just went blank. What's the big famous movie about William Randolph Hearst from Orson Welles?
Oh yeah, Citizen Kane.
Yeah. I mean, Citizen Kane is telling this story. So in that regard, you know, the media has been pretty much controlled since then, at least. And then I would say that as time progresses, as you get the creation of, you know, the national security state in the U.S. in 1942, and then the rise of the prominence and power of the CIA and the deep state throughout those 50s, 60s, 70s Cold War period. And then you get Mockingbird, and Mockingbird is something that wasn't just this one-time thing where Woodward and Bernstein exposed, you know, the CIA basically making what most of the media their mouthpiece. I mean, this is even more sophisticated and even more so now. And we saw that German. It's not just the U.S. media right now; it's of course global media. We saw that German correspondent who ended up dead a year or two, Udo Aufkolte, when he went on RT probably 5 years ago or so, and he said that the CIA was basically giving directives to German media what they were to put. And then in that case, that was in regard to Syria. It was probably Syria and Ukraine, but I think he was talking about Syria. It's a famous interview. You can still find his interview on RT, and then lo and behold, 2 years later, he ends up dead. So, you know, when people from the media come out and talk about this, which is pretty obvious, pretty well known, and he wasn't saying anything more, you know, revolutionary or crazy than what Woodward and Bernstein had said decades before. So that's how it works. I mean, that's the reality of media, is that you have these Western outlets that all parrot one narrative, and that's because it's coordinated, it's done on purpose. We know this, it's beyond dispute. And you know, past that period, we get into the 90s and the 2000s, we get weapons of mass destruction and the Gulf War. And it's no different there. The media, there's all of this anger and hatred towards Bush. It's all theater, it's all fake, because as soon as we get the announcement of war, and then, you know, after 9/11, then everybody goes into lockstep with Bush. And so you know, the establishment knows that wartime is something that just automatically unites people. Look at the crazy cult mindset of what has happened in the last 2 years, the Koof narrative, and how crazy and cultic everyone got with that. And can you imagine how much more cult-like and just herd-like we're going to see people via war? And these kinds of situations always need these villains. You know, in the 90s and 2000s, the villain was OSAMA. It was the TERRISS, to use the phraseology of W. Tersh, right? And then the villains become Trump in the last 5 years, and now we have a new villain. It's Putin. Of course, Putin's been a villain for a long time, but now after these, now he's like the greatest villain in the history of the world. So totally hypocritical, though, because you know, the media, it just should be transparent. And I think the worst part, people were pointing it out today on various outlets, was so many people, especially on the right, spent the last 5 years talking about how much the media has lied, and now they're just buying into this wholesale. So, you know, such is the power of the media, unfortunately. And again, as you've got that highlight there, I mean, just to add to the absurdity of this, I mean, this guy was previously a president on TV. Now he's the Western installed puppet president of NATO and the U.S. deep state. So this is the world we live in. It's just like, it's surreal and postmodern.
Yeah, I like this one. Watch Ukraine's war hero president Volodymyr Zelensky win his country's version of Strictly. Volodymyr Zelensky waltzes his way to victory in viral video that emerges as Ukraine fights for its future. I mean, that just says it all right there. Like some of these images, like I don't, you don't need to comment on the absurdity, and just the symbolic destruction of the mind of the West. You know, it just seems like the psyche is so fractured right now. And it's interesting you mentioned, you know, the previous crisis, last week's crisis, which I'm sure they're never going to let that go. Everything, just like with the war on the tourists, just like the war on terror, these measures that they put in place and the framework that they put in place is not about fighting the proposed enemy. It's about long-term societal change. It's about social engineering. It's about changing the way we live, the way we see it ourselves, the way we see our neighbors. And it's funny because, you know, the war on, you know, the post 2001, post September 2001 world was all about increased surveillance. It was all about more fear of your neighbor. Anybody could be you know, a secret sleeper cell. And that's expanded with the crisis that came before this. Now with this, you know, what they're saying could be World War III. I'm not so sure if I don't think they're really correct on that. I don't think this is World War III in the Ukraine, which we'll get into that in a little bit. But it's the same idea too that anybody could be, you know, a secret supporter of, you know, the evil Putin regime. You know, like you're already seeing this more the factionization, this fractalization of the, you know, right wing, so-called right wing, and you saw the COOF did the same thing, right? All these people that were completely against the you know, the lies of the media from 2016 until 2020. All of a sudden, the COOF hits, and they believe everything the media says. Stay home, save lives. Put the face diaper on, and wait for your government to roll out mandatory medical treatments for you. So yeah, it's like this. These psyops, they come hard and they come in stages, and they just stack one on another. It seems.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting that given the end to the restrictions and all this that's beginning to lift, that now we get the war, right? So you know, these things just happen to come so nice, neatly, and packaged at the right time. It's like, you know, during COVID, I remember thinking like, well, isn't it great that all the terrorists have ceased their activities and all of their, like, we don't have to worry about that now that COVID is here. And so thankfully all the terrorists out there were obeying the you know, mask mandates and the you know, social distancing. They just gave up during COOF, right? But what you start to realize that a lot of these things, they're only problems or fears when they need to be, and then they can be sort of rolled out, or they're like cards in a deck that can be played at any time, right? Oh, let's, like the Illuminati card deck, right? Like, let's play the foreign oppressor card, let's play the, you know, protest card, let's play the, you know, crisis terrorist card, right? These are just cards that can be played at any time. Not to say that I think that the elites like told Putin to do this. I think what happened was they were continually goading, provoking a reaction like this, and it seemed to a degree to be a surprise to the people in the West that Putin took the actions that he took. But I mean, this is what, like 8 years of trying to get a reaction, and then, you know, it's basically NATO, the West are like the meme of the guy who cries out as he stabs you.
Yeah, or like that meme of you know, the guys with like an FBI hat, and he's poking like a dog, like, come on,
Do something.
come on, do a
Yes.
domestic extremism. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
It's like, come
Yeah.
on, do an
So,
invasion.
um, yeah, I mean, it's just so transparent. If we remember the uranium one deals that Hillary and her regime had, right? I mean, if the Clintons and the same people that are, you know, have all these sweet deals in the Ukraine, the Democrats, basically a lot of the Democrat leaders, their sons, their children are running corporations. So there's all of these deals locked up with this foreign entity, both Ukraine and Russia, both of these entities. But we're supposed to think now that deals or anything that's going on with Putin was this great villain, and yet the same people behind this have had all kinds of deals in Russia. So I mean, if Putin is this great villain who just sort of wakes up one morning and decides that he's going to invade a country, I mean, it just calls into question all of the previous years of deals with Russian companies, right? I mean, do you see what I'm saying? The hypocrisy.
Yeah, well, also all the oil and gas that comes into
Right.
Europe from Russia doesn't. I mean, how much does I'm not really versed on how much the U.S. is purchasing, but I believe the U.S. and Canada also purchase significant amounts of either gas or oil or both from Russia, and I mean, obviously that plays a big part in this as well.
Everyone seems to have not everyone, but I think a large portion of the population isn't buying this, and that's why they're having to run so many fake, sort of ridiculous propaganda pieces just nonstop in the West. I mean, I'm following, the Russian media on the one hand, and Russian outlets and military intelligence outlets on Telegram, and then on the other hand, I'm following and watching the mainstream narrative, and the contrast between the two is striking. Like, you would think on the one hand that like Russia's collapsing and Putin's about to give up and he's crying in a corner, and that Zelensky's like freeing the country. And on the other hand, it's like basically Zelensky and his crew are about to just completely capitulate and collapse. So it's just two
Right.
completely different stories, completely different, narratives coming out. I saw that Republican senator fell for that Sam Hyde picture. So that's the level of stupidity that we're dealing with in terms of our leaders, people who literally think that the ghost of Kiev is Sam Hyde. It's that bad.
Yeah,
Did
I
you
mean
see
that.
that?
Yeah, well, I think we both sent that to each other like
Oh, did
within
you? Okay.
minutes of the other day. That was hilarious. I'll pull that one up in a minute. How about this one? I mean, this is like meme level ridiculousness from who is this? Ukraine's ambassador to the UN. I'll read this. So,
Oh, the
transcript of
text messages.
yeah. This is a transcript of a text message that a Russian soldier sent to his mother that the Ukrainian ambassador read before the UN. So let's read this. This is obviously 100% real, totally true. Somebody look at this. Person has a check mark next to her name. It's a woman. I mean, this comes from a woman. Investigative correspondent at Time on the online chaos beat, formerly NatSec at BuzzFeed News. Glad so I mean, I didn't even need to say reliable and believable. I could have just said a woman from BuzzFeed, and you'd know that you should believe her. So here's the text messages. Why has it been so long since you responded? Are you really in training exercises? Mom, I am no longer in Crimea. I am not in training sessions. Where are you then? Papa is asking whether I can send you a parcel. What kind of a parcel, Mama, can you send me? I just want to hang myself now. What are you talking about? What happened? Mom, I'm in Ukraine. There is a real war raging here. I am afraid. We are bombing all of the cities together, even targeting civilians. We were told that they would welcome us, and they are falling under our armored vehicles, throwing themselves under the wheels, and not allowing us to pass. They call us fascists. Mama, this is so hard. So, I mean, obviously, that's totally
Obviously
real.
fake. Yellow cake, right? Babies in incubators. I mean, this is that level. You
I mean,
remember all those, right?
yeah, exactly. As soon as UN ambassador, when they found out that the baby in incubators story, it was like the daughter of a diplomat. Is that who was the?
It was, and it was put together by that company that W owned that just creates propaganda.
For the greater good, of course, for the greater good. But it's like they feel that it's very brazen, right? And people, I guess, a lot of people are kind of infantilized. I mean, when you look at the consumer culture that these people are subjected to, the Marvel movies, the superhero nonsense. I mean, it's just
Mhm.
it's an idolatrous culture that we've been enmeshed in since we were children, and unfortunately, yeah, that we're just being treated like freaking retards. And
Yeah, and it's created a a generation of soy males. I mean, that guy that I shared the picture of the other day that had like 5,000 Funko Pops behind him. I mean, if that's going to be what the Western male is like, I mean, we're going to be invaded and run over eventually.
Yeah,
and
well
that doesn't
said.
mean that that doesn't mean that the other people, the people who do that, are the good guys, because eventually the same consumer pop culture is intended to destroy them as well.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's so dumbed down that it's like if you critique the West at all, then you must be, if you're not with us, then
Yeah,
you're
you're a
against us.
stooge of Putin. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah,
Yeah, and it was the same way
the
back. I remember. So after 9/11, if you criticized, because I pretty quickly, got into 9/11. Sorry, the Big Nine truth. After that event, if you did that, I remember back in 2003, 4. I mean, I wasn't some liberal Democrat, but you would have people, especially boomers. You're one of them liberals. You're pro-terrorist. You support the terrorists because you question W. So if you question the narrative, the assumption was you're with the terrorists. It was just so inane. And I mean, I was realizing, back then when I was 23, 4 years old, that, man, this is crazy. Like, people can't critically think about these events. So like they look at the evidence and they can't see it. Right. And it's 10 times worse now, because since 2003 or 4, I mean, the censorship, the control, the dumbing down has probably been magnified 5 times that what it was back then in 2003 or 4.
Yeah, the internet seems to. I mean, the news cycle has accelerated so much. I mean, it's stunning still. I mean, I shouldn't be shocked about this because we've been talking about this stuff for so long, right? But it is surprising to me just how quickly a new narrative can steamroll everybody's consciousness and and essentially just turn the whole culture on its head. You've got I think the internet is probably the most powerful tool as far as propaganda, social engineering, and narrative control. I mean, the big tech companies, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, which shout out to our friends at YouTube. We're still on YouTube right now. We will be going over to Rockfin soon, where we can get a little deeper into this stuff and talk about the things that the YouTube censors don't like very much. But it's amazing how much they can control the narrative, and you see that when they're shutting down RT, or demonetizing RT, and getting pulling Ruptly from Facebook, stuff like
Well,
that.
right now, the EU is about to totally ban RT right now. So,
in the name of freedom, of course.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we're living in strange times. We got an infantilized soy male, consumer, pod dwellers waiting for the government rations to be arriving from their Amazon drones and loving it. Right? You have a full on culture war. You got a full on war on our minds. You got a full on war on our bodies, on our health as well. Which, big shout out, nice little transition here to a shout out to our sponsors. You guys are the ones who sponsor this show with your donations, with your support. Of course, we got some bigots that regularly dropping them super chats, the Streamlabs. You guys have slowed down lately, so I got to remind you guys, we are doing that. The top super chatter via the Streamlabs or via Rockfin will get an all expenses paid trip to the Gulag once it rolls out in the West. So you can drop a donation if you guys enjoy. Let me read a donation from Pano Kostros, donated $5. Says this whole Marvel media isn't surprising or new. Remember, Captain America came out as war propaganda. Yeah, and then like the Disney stuff too, right? I mean, Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck.
Well, there was during the Syria crisis, there was a whole slew of this where there was the white helmets documentaries, which were all fake, staged chemical attacks. Assad's chemically attacking his people, and they're running articles yesterday saying Putin's about to chemically attack the Ukrainians. So they don't even, they just run the same scripts over and over and over, right? And the chemical attack script goes back to Saddam. Saddam's got chemical weapons. He's gassing his people. He's chemical attacking, which the CIA gave him that for the Kurdish war, right? Or the Iraqi war. So they just run and repeat the same things, and it looks like they're trying to say that now that there's going to be a
Yeah, that would be the
either a
logical
cyber
next
attack,
step.
right?
Yeah.
That Russia will be responsible for a massive Western cyber attack, cyber polygon, something like that, probably, or that there will be a fake and staged sort of chemical attack, and then that will be, the probably just used in the media. But I don't know, like, I don't. It's hard to tell what's going to happen because it looks like Germany and Finland and different EU countries are sending weapons in, but what exactly that's going to accomplish, I don't know. So a couple of people,
it is pretty alarming to see like how quickly they are ramping this stuff up, and then sending jets over from Poland or from other NATO nations. It's like they're going full speed ahead. I'd really like to get into this and ask you some questions of what you think about how this could go down in the Rockfin only segment.
Yeah.
So yeah, shout out, thank you Pano for that super chat. Hey you guys, we got the main sponsor of the stream via Streamlabs, main sponsor who's watching on YouTube, Pano Costaros over there. Thank you very much, dude. Guys, make sure to drop a tip. If you like the streams, drop a tip. You like them, share the videos, right? Share the freaking videos. Like the videos, share the videos. ELC, there you go. Big and numero uno tonight is ELC. Dropping that $20 tip over there on Rockfin. You guys on Rockfin are usually better supporters than the lazy degenerate bigots over there on YouTube. So thank you very much. ELC says when Jared Leto won the Oscar in 2014 during The Maiden, he thanked the freedom fighters of Ukraine in his acceptance speech. I can't wait to see what the Academy has in store for this year.
Yeah, I've been seeing some really good tweets about people already predicting the garbage that Netflix and Marvel are going to put out, the heroes of Ukraine.
Right? I mean, we got this one on the screen right now, as you guys can see. Avengers star Jeremy Renner's fan cast to play Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky in a possible movie on Russian invasion. Twitter left divided. Ooh, it's a very hot issue there. All right, we got another another tip over here on Rockfin. Thank you very much. ELC says, Jay, have you ever watched any Adam Curtis documentaries on hyperreality, etc.? He's a classical left liberal who dismisses conspiracy theories, but some of his work is insightful in this area.
Yes, I've seen I'm very familiar. I've watched his, Century of the Self probably 15 years ago. I haven't watched the newer ones because I just didn't expect anything other than kind of what was obvious. But yeah, I'm very familiar with him.
All right, thank you, ELC. Another one from ELC says, I remember Greg Johnson, the Skittles postmodernist Wignat, talking about going to Kiev and saying he loved all the skinhead heavy metal bands there. Wow.
Yeah, that's the interesting element here. And I've seen a lot of alt-right accounts, posting pro-Ukraine stuff, which is bizarre because on the one hand, you have people like Vaush, this super left, socialist, atheist creep, aligned with people that are neo-pagan, far-right people. I mean, it's just kind of like it's mind-boggling, really.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would want to ask them what they think of Zelensky, because he, as far as, kind of where he comes from, is, he doesn't seem to align with the Wignats ideologically or symbolically in many ways.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know how they would answer that.
Big time.
They'd probably say, well, I don't like him, but we agree with, the Volk or something. I don't know.
ELC says, I've noticed a recurring pop culture propaganda tactic is portraying real life events and then having these cartoonish comic book villains show up and say, even I wouldn't do this. For example, there was a Fantastic Four comic after the Big Nine that had Dr. Doom crying at the World Trade Center.
Yeah, that's funny, right? Even the villains in the comic books are, not as extreme as the real world so-called villains. They're doing this with ALEX right now. Like CNN's putting out these pieces that he is the reason that America is like collapsing. So it's not Biden. It's not. It's actually Lord Voldemort is the reason why America is falling apart because he helped get Trump there and all this kind of stuff. So that's literally they just deflect to, they just pick villains and create the narratives. that's the power of the media and the tech censorship, is to shut down any competing narratives so that they can create the villains. The so-called villains can't reply. And the strength of this is that there's a mob of just complete slow boys and girls and they thems that believe whatever the Borg hive mind says. It's pretty crazy. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I'm kind of a loss for words, really, because like you said, if you've watched and covered this stuff and analyzed it since, I mean, the big nine is what really got me looking at this stuff. And if you've been following and watching things since then, it's just kind of mind boggling to see like how duped and stupid people are for this kind of stuff.
It's hard.
sad,
Yeah, I
really.
try not to be cynical. I try to, give people the benefit of the doubt, but it's like as a whole, most people in our culture are just infants, like literal ninth grade perpetual consciousness. This is what they're living in. Being, cute and making, stupid poop and fart jokes with their friends, just completely addicted to, terrible food, junk food, uh, pop culture of pornography. It's like the average American male and female are so cognitively um, deficient and
I
so
thought it was bad. Yeah. And I was listening to David Patrick Harry did a live stream the other day about how technology's atrophied us. I couldn't believe that. I mean, I'm not saying they're not wrong. It's just they blew my mind. The statistics on literacy, that there were studies, and maybe the studies aren't accurate, but something tells me they are. But there were studies that like only 1/3 of fourth graders could read at a fourth grade level. 40% of adults can't read an eighth grade level book and have never read a book. So half of the country can't read an eighth grade level book and has
and that's
never read
not
a book.
global. That's U.S. statistics.
That's the
he's
US.
talking about. Yeah, that's insane.
That's crazy.
It's absolutely insane. And what you've seen with distance learning and the current slash previous slash returning soon for season two crisis is that literacy rates have gone down sufficiently. I'm sorry, not sufficiently, but ridiculously. The literacy rates are declining, and also children's ability to have normal human interactions are being destroyed because of the mask wearing. Right, you're covering half the face, uh, and their emotional intelligence is decreased significantly. Their communication skills are being destroyed, and that's, of course, this is by design. This is designed to get us reliant on technological appendages for everything we do. So yeah, the diet, the education system, the weaponized pop culture, these are all pushing us towards what you mentioned earlier, this segregated world where we are all isolated. We believe we're hyper individualistic, but really we're kind of just this Borg hive mind type people who are engineered to not procreate so that they can reduce the population, so that they can herd you into smart cities, control your every movements, and turn you into, cockroach milk sipping bug men obsessed with owning Funko Pops and supporting sluts on OnlyFans. So, I mean, it's a full on onslaught. And, I really appreciate guys like Jay who are pushing back against this, right? I really appreciate everybody who watches these videos. Share the videos, like the videos, do all that stuff. But then also support yourself. Support yourself and support your own health by hitting up choq.com, choq.com. Use the coupon code. We're going full on. We're going full on World War III on the soy. We're going full World War III on the Globo Soyo Empire, and supporting your health, your cognitive health, your physical health, your hormonal health. Hit up choq.com, highest quality adaptogens, and you're gonna get 50% off if you use that coupon code BIG50. Right? Hit them up for the if you're a dude, the daily is awesome. I got Jay Dyer on here. He's also up on that daily, taking the daily. The purified shilajit is awesome. I also really like the in the evenings, I like the ashwagandha to calm down, kind of soothe you a little bit, get you to get better sleep. But hit up choq.com, choq.com. The link is in the description. The link is in the chat. Hit them up and you're going to get 50% off everything store-wide. We got major supply chain disruptions that have happened this year. It's a good time to get stocked up. Get those high-quality adaptogens, natural supplements, all 100% organic, and some of them even beyond organic, wild crafted, like the Tong Cat Extract, the super adaptogen to help you balance your hormones out. Hit them up, chalk.com, 50% off, store-wide, 50% more global warming when you use that, 50% more toxic masculinity for Dyer, right? And every single order that you place using that coupon code BIG50, you will see a 50% increase in your social credit scores, guaranteed when they do roll out that social credit system. So we're gonna hack the back end. Absolutely. So basically, you can't afford not to go to chalk.com and get that big 50 coupon code to get 50% off. And also, you probably can't afford not to, because if you don't, maybe, just maybe, we'll contact your employer and tell them that you are watching content from guys like Dyer. You know, maybe if you don't use that coupon code, go to chalk.com, use that big 50, just maybe we'll send an email to your boss and tell them what types of comments you guys are making in the live chat on videos such as this. You know, I don't want to have to
I
go
like
there.
your new model of like extortion style super chats. Like this is a new model for.
Well, this is not for super. This is for, well, we got to extort some super chats out of them as well. But that's another thing, you guys. You go to chalk.com, but also, hey, you know, I mean, how do you know I don't have every one of your IP addresses and your
Just go for
geolocation?
straight up blackmail. Super
Like,
chat
I'm just
blackmail.
like, how do you know I can't access your private images on your phone and maybe send them to your employer? Send some of those memes that you've been sending each other. Send that to your employer. Do you think they would like that? Do you think they would enjoy that? We'll drop a super chat. All right, get yourself on some soy, on some get yourself off the soy and get yourself on that chalk.com, that high quality adaptogen tip, and use that big 50 coupon code for 50% off. All right, there you go, guys. You have been properly extorted. We'll try to gaslight you into that a little bit later as well. You know, extortion and gaslighting, those are our new marketing techniques.
That's the new model for super chats and selling products. I like it.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to be.
Oh, that's like the NATO model, right? So the NATO model of geopolitics and right.
Absolutely. We are going thermonuclear NATO right here. And we will literally get your wife fired from her job if you do not send us
Wait a minute, you're telling me you don't want the freedom and the democracy of gigantic zillion-dollar IMF debt? You don't want that? You don't want the freedom of Coke, Pepsi, Marvel, and Stabbies? You don't want that?
Mandatory freedom. That freedom's mandatory, by the way. You're going to take that freedom whether you like it or not. You're going to take that freedom at the barrel of a gun.
Exactly. Are you going to Rockfin now? Where we can
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We're gonna close this stream out.
Sass mouth things.
Jay's just itching to say he really loves to say.
I just want to say all the mean words.
He's got to say all the gamer. He's got to do all his racisms. We're gonna be going. I'm just joking, obviously. But Jay does hate white people. He's a good global citizen. He's been properly indoctrinated by Marvel to despise, to hate the whiteys. So we're going over to Rockfin. All you bigots on YouTube, we got over 200 bigots. This is great for this channel, which is nearly impossible to find in the YouTube algorithm. So make sure to share the videos, like the videos, and hit us up over on rockfin.com, ROKFIN.com. I'm dropping the link in the chat right now, and we're gonna be live on Rockfin right now. And you can come over there, and we're going to be 100% uncensored. We're going to talk about where all this is going, analyze some of the conflicting propaganda that we're seeing from both sides, perhaps in this Ukraine conflict. We're going to talk about, is it going to be World War III? Is it going to be full-on thermonuclear? What is going on here? Is Putin a secret WEF Klaus Schwab shill baby? Will the Avengers swoop in and save the precious LGBTQIA plus MAPS community from extermination from the evil Russians who are walking in with backpack exterminator incineration devices, just looking to burn up the poor little gabies when they enter Ukraine? We're going to be talking about Zelensky and all this stuff over there. So hit us up on Rockfin, you guys. Ending the YouTube stream right now, and just give us 1 minute, and we'll be right there.
Can I go to the TT to the little girl's room?
No.
Yes.
Okay, fine, whatever. Just go.